Show X at vtwproductions.com.
This is Kitten Features, and you're listening to Show X Live with Ken in a student accommodation all the way in Scotland, and Wayne in his white windowless van? Uh-oh, I better get out of here. Enjoy the show!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Show X on vtwproductions.com. It's doing a thing. Come on. The mic is not picking up. Come on. So the challenge here is I changed it over on Sam. And so I'm trying to remember if I switched that audio cable. Which I thought I had done before, because when I did the last one, I checked the edit on it. And, you know what? Real quick, so people on the people who are listening to the video stream are fine. It's the people that are on the audio stream that might be hearing things like, "Wait a second, where is my show?"
Okay, well, that's fine.
I'm sorry.
Not at all.
Actually, no, it should be coming through. I'm confused. Let's see. Hello. Oh, weird. Okay, I turned it off and back on, and it worked. It's like everything in PCs, right? Shut it off, Turn it back on, and all of a sudden it magically works. I didn't change a single setting. I just turned off the mic and turned it back on. Oh, you silly broadcaster. Anyhow, we are ready to go. All right, with that, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone out there. Welcome to Show X on vtwproductions.com. It is 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. GMT on this Sunday, the 13th of... What are we in November already? 2016. Yeah. So welcome everybody to the show. We are joined this week not only by our good friend Ken, but also by a special guest today, our friend Beck Stewart.
Hello.
Welcome to the show, Beck. How are you doing?
Doing all right.
So, in the grand scheme and theme of things of having guests on our show, we're going to make sure to spend the first part of the show talking and getting to know a little bit about you. So, yeah, exactly. As you're sitting here like, what do you mean that? What is that? What do you mean?
Awkward laugh.
I know, right?
Totally not sure what you were getting into.
No, not at all.
And that's all right. So, today on the show, and so Beck Stewart is going to follow in our line of talking to people that have a ton of talent and multi-talented in many ways. You are not only let's see, how can I describe? I met you through cosplay, and so seeing you in costume at conventions and such, as well as I've gotten to see some of the crafting that you do, because you have a lot of artistic ability when it comes to crafting, as well as you have artistic ability when it comes to thought and storytelling, as you're also an author.
Yeah, at least I try anyway.
Well, you say you try, but that is still ye of many hats. Very, very nice.
It's never a try. You either are an author or you're not. And in your case, you definitely are.
What do you say? What do you mean? You laugh as though you are not. So I'm kind of trying to decide how to tackle your many talents and who you are. But to start things off, how would you like to introduce yourself to our audience out there?
Well, as my crafts page says, I'm a jack of all trades but a master of none. I dabble in a whole bunch of stuff. Costume making, just clothing making in general even, props, jewelry, writing.
So a whole shebang, essentially.
Pretty much the whole shebang.
Yeah, as you're saying, jack of all trades. Although I would argue when you say master of none, because I have seen a lot of your work, and I would say that it does take some mastery to do so.
Oh, well, thanks.
So what I'd like to talk about first then is kind of how I first met you with cosplay, seeing you around the convention center and such, or the different conventions I go to. I don't know the first time I probably ran into you, but I will speak about one of the more memorable times. It's actually when I was running around with John, our other author friend who happens to be hiding in the room, when we went to AnomalyCon here in Denver, our local steampunk convention. And that was through a mutual friend, my friend Mikey, where you guys were both dressed up as essentially automatrons, if you will, or
automatons. Yep.
Automatons.
I did both of our makeup. Mikey tried to do most of his, but started getting frustrated about halfway through, so I had to finish up for him. But yeah, that's one of the other things that I do quite a bit is the makeup stuff.
As you talk about, well, I say multiple talents. And for those out there in video land who are watching the stream on YouTube, I'm showing off one of your pages, your New Moon's Craft page, showing the costume that I recall best. Essentially, you dressed up robotic and all. And so as we go into and kind of talking about the costuming and makeup and such, what first got you into the whole scene of cosplay?
Not even really realizing that's what it was. I think that's kind of how it started for everyone, actually. When I first started watching Pokemon, back in the day when it first started playing here in the United States, I loved the characters so much. I was like, I want to be them, so I started grabbing things from my closet that looked like something the character would wear and started throwing it together. And as time progressed, I realized, well, not everything that's in my closet is going to work for the character, so I need to start making things. And that's when I went to my first convention, was after I threw a whole bunch of stuff together to cosplay as Kyosoma from Fruits Basket.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I love my little cat boy.
Oh.
And I saw everyone else dressed up, and I'm like, where did they find this stuff? And everyone's like, no, we made this stuff. I was like, okay, I need to step up my game.
Yeah, no, I think every cosplayer's or costumer's first introduction into the scene can be a bit overwhelming. I was fortunate enough that when I first went to cons, I didn't think about costuming until I had seen a few, and then was kind of like, I could do that. And so similar kind of thing where I had costumed most of my life, not realizing that the level I took it to was more on the level of cosplay than just Halloween costumes.
Yeah.
Until I went back and looked at old costumes of mine and was like, oh, I've been doing this forever. Okay.
And that's the hard thing about being a cosplayer around Halloween. You never know what you're going to wear. Because I always feel weird wearing an anime costume or a movie costume on Halloween. I try to pick something that's not in the cosplay closet necessarily.
I can understand that. That's something. There's some great memes out there when it comes to cosplayers where it's like, oh no, it's Halloween. And it's a picture of a person standing in front of their whole closet full of costumes. That is what
I do. I just stand there for 10 minutes staring at all the clothes like, what am I going to wear this year?
Oh, and I do the same thing because I almost never actually Halloween costume any of my cosplays. If I do, it's a rare moment where I was like, I'll try to do both. Last year I did my garter belt, admittedly. And 1 year way back, I had started off with doing a Matthew Patel from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and then I forgot I had the costume and didn't wear it to the anime convention right afterwards, and was so disappointed with myself. But yeah, no, it's... Well, and it's fun, right? Because costuming for me is just a blast. So from your perspective, what is it about costuming that you so enjoy?
It's the challenge, trying to figure out how to take something that's just a drawing that might necessarily not actually work in real life and figuring out how to make it actually work in real life. The designs, how things are shaped, the sizing down a pattern from a pattern that you buy at the store and how to change it and all the changes and things like that.
No, that's
what I enjoy.
No, the challenge is a big part because I've seen so many costumes people do that. The luxury people have when animating things, which a lot of costumes some of us do when it comes to anime, is that you can draw anything.
Yeah.
Whether it's physically possible to exist or not. And, well, so as you laugh, Ken, a lot of the... and I'm very fortunate that I'm around a lot of great cosplayers who have been able to do and defy what should be possible. To the level of I've seen people make props that are insanely large and difficult to move around, or full suits of armor, all the way down to like people wearing so little clothing that it shouldn't but physics defy that they can keep themselves concealed.
Those ones I'm impressed by. The armor I'm impressed by. One of my friends has made the same suit of armor from Berserk 3 times in 3 different materials.
Woo.
And each time it's been amazing, and I'm just blown away each time she finishes. I'm like, how do you even do that?
You guys can say what you want. I'm personally more impressed by when people just do any anime hair that involves sticking straight up in the hair. That is literally defying physics. That just blows my mind. I don't know how
That's
that
the thing that I have a problem with is I'm not good at styling the wigs, so if I try to stick with stuff that's pretty basic still. So yeah, no super insane hairdos for me.
Oh no, absolutely. The hair part is difficult. I myself have been able to style a couple wigs, and works in progress. The best I've still done is probably Nate from Yokai Watch for my friend's daughter for La Campette. She's worn that multiple times and quite happy with the spikes out of it. But for me, it's a combination of like being able to work with your natural hair, let alone wig.
Yeah.
And because I know I can do natural hair somewhat well, but I also play to the hair I have.
Yeah.
Whereas wigs to me are just this whole other world.
Well, and wigs didn't used to bother me, but recently I've developed a skin condition called psoriasis.
Oh no!
Yeah, and it sucks as a cosplayer because it's scaling patches on their skin. For me, it's mostly on my head, and wearing a wig completely irritates
Aggravates
that.
it very bad.
It's like weekend conventions, I can wear just one wig, and the rest of the weekend I have to figure out what I can do with my real hair.
Oh, jeez. Well,
think of it as a fun challenge rather than a detriment, because it means that you just have to be even more creative than you already are. So again,
I usually go with Steampunk for the other days, because that doesn't require a wig usually.
Well, so it goes into how many. Other cosplay questions that always come up for me is, what is your most definitive cosplay, do you think? The one that you either see yourself as being known for or that you think others know you for? That's one question.
Oh, Lord. It's kind of between 2 different looks. One is my Once Upon a Time Snow White. I've only worn her once, but she's kind of one of the bigger ones that I've done, I think. The other one is a bit more my own design, and that's one of the robot steampunk looking ones, the red and black design. Yes. Yeah, those are the ones that I either wear a lot or I think I'm best known for.
Nope, that's good. And then the other side of that I ask always is, if with a rough guess, how many cosplays would you say you have at the moment? Well, because I often go, there's the harder question of how many cosplays have you ever done? I think that personally to me is a harder one. So I like to ask, how many cosplays do you think you have?
It might be easier to say how many rooms or cupboards full of clothing do you have in your home, and that might give a good guess.
That would be easier question to answer. I have, I think, 10 tubs full of costumes or pieces for costumes, plus 2 rolling racks for pieces that I'm currently working on. I know, it's kind of ridiculous.
That's more than I have clothes. I mean,
I think it's about even for me right now with the costumes and clothing.
Well, no, and I sympathize because I have a closet off the side of one of my rooms I use for my cosplay, and every time I just keep adding to it, and now I need to go back in there and rearrange because I also had some Halloween some Christmas decoration wrapping papers and things like that, and some extra boxes of just some other clothes I don't wear often. Those need to come out so I can dedicate the space just for costuming, and I need to get more organized by getting bins and such for specific costumes, because so far it's been I try to either throw it in a bag or something altogether, or with my Pokemon trainer costume I have the backpack. So I just stuffed the rest of everything in the backpack.
That's easy, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one giant tub that's dedicated to nothing but all my steampunk pieces. So that's my biggest passion in the costume is the steampunk.
Very nice, very nice. So yeah, that comes up to the costuming side. When it comes to as a transition with the steampunk, what is it about steampunk culture that really jazzes you? Because this will lead into as we talk about your written work and everything like that. But just steampunk as a whole, because and actually, if you would, to explain for others steampunk, because we have a lot of geeks in the community and they should understand it really. But from your perspective, how do you describe steampunk to people when they ask about it?
Victorian with a sci-fi twist is the easiest way that I can put it when anyone asks me what exactly is that.
It's a good way of putting it. Yep.
Yeah, that's succinct. I like that.
Yeah, the quickest way to get it out there rather than be like, okay, have you ever heard of... It's that. No. I love the corsets. I've always loved Victorian fashion, so that was the biggest draw to me to steampunk.
Well, like the big dresses and kind of the frills and like you said, the corsets, the multiple layers of, I forget the name for all the hoops and things like that.
Petticoats and crinolines and oh my god. And that's what I'm dealing with right now is I'm trying to make a dress for the cover of my novel and oh my god, the layers in this thing. It's kind of insane.
No, that is something that daunts me. I've always wanted to get into steampunk. My challenge is multiple. Is just that I can never think of a look of what I think I could pull off. And every time I've tried to go out and seek pieces, I always find myself defaulting over to like instead of the traditional browns and bronzes and kind of tones like that, that similarly Victorian and Western kind of blend. I always find myself going to more traditional like blacks and more of the stark contrast of white and black kind of things like that, which can still be done, I believe.
Yeah, they can totally be done. Most of the steampunk stuff seems to be in the brown tones and such, but true Victorian, there's a lot of color in it, actually. Some of my research books, there's anywhere from a powder blue to sunshine yellow to deep reds.
See, I could see the deep reds. That would be awesome. And it's, so I'm still trying to find the look. I think for me, a top hat I keep wanting a nice tailored, like, long coat and such, but I can't find something I enjoy. And it's funny because, like, Ken, actually, I would love to see what the steampunk stuff is out in Scotland with you, Ken.
Ooh.
Because
I don't know, actually. I have absolutely no idea what it's like here, because I have to admit, I suppose I'm kind of forced in the corner here. I'm not much of a cosplayer as much as just an outside fan. I enjoy watching, I enjoy hearing, I enjoy following all the stuff online, but I have never cosplayed or really attended anything that has cosplay. Even though I surround myself with cosplayers, weirdly enough. So
as I say,
I love this kind of thing, so I can hear all the culture and hear all about it, but I can't say I know much about it myself other than just what you guys tell me.
We need to get your wife, get Kitten Features, to do you up with makeup for steampunk. I think she would do a very good job. And I was thinking about it because I've seen, at least at Renfest and stuff, and I've seen somewhere at some of the steampunk conventions, blends where I have seen people in kilts and such working with, and you being a proper Scotsman, Ken, I would love to see a blend of a good kilt in with a full steampunk outfit.
I'm sure there's
like a mechanized claymore.
Okay, that's pretty awesome.
So I was just thinking, what can I talk about that Ken would actually get jazzed about that we could find you a steampunk look?
Well, I've already got the claymore. I just need to make it mechanized now. I wonder if there's like a guide online on how to mechanize your claymore.
You just gotta add gears in Steam. It's easy.
I'm sure you could find something. There's always something out there online for anything steampunk. But as the biggest thing is, just glue gears to it. Is the biggest thing.
Well, that, and I'm also saying, because Ken has a pretty epic beard, that I could see him, like, oiling it into, like, 2 points kind of thing. And
I could probably do that twirly mustache thing as well. I could probably
see?
Yeah, get the wax.
But that is something I do love about the steampunk community, is there's an elegance to it that goes beyond what you see with a lot of cosplay from anime and other things, unless people are doing... There's certain anime that lend themselves, or movies and such, like, Black Butler and stuff like that, where it has a similar look, in essence, right? Or anything that's more medieval, where it's focused around the princesses and kind of the royalty, less so than the combat, then you'll get some of that elegance. But most costumes I tend to see are more just the main characters, and they're usually action-y, or just depending on the genre. I don't see as many, like, elegant costumes as you will see throughout a steampunk event. And stuff like that. So I am definitely drawn to it, and I think there's such a neat look that comes along with steampunk. Because for me, it's not just the look of a Victorian style, but it's also the personality and kind of the way the culture functions around it, right?
Yes. That's another
So
one
I'd love
of the
to hear
things.
more about this culture, because you've both said the phrase a few times, and as far as I was aware, it was just a style. So how is there a steampunk culture, and how would you define that?
Some people, they live steampunk 24 hours, 7 days a week. Yeah, they wear nothing but, such as vests, button-down shirts, capris, boots, which is the simplest way to go with the look. And if you're ever trying to start out with your steampunk look, that's the best way to go. Look in your closet, see what you have that you can work with already. Once you've gotten that down, then you can go into the skirts and things like that. The culture-wise, there's all kinds of things that you can find online. There's lamps and things like that you can get that are like octopuses.
Well, so I think kind of into the culture, right? There's more, because there's things that influence the look that are kind of based on what the world of what the world of steampunk is, because that's part of it, right? Steampunk isn't just the look so much, is you have to imagine an entire world that has grown up in a way that technology continued to advance, but style and fashion kind of did not.
Yeah.
And instead of going to what we do with traditional gas-guzzling cars and traditional ways of creating electricity and things like that with nuclear and solar and stuff like that, you have to think more of a medieval, or not even medieval, an early European like sense about it, where steam is in the name, is a primary function, like steam engines, for creating propulsion, to provide power and movement for whatever it is that's in the world. And that technology has also infused the world. It's not just something that, you just use because it's there. It's something that envelops everyone's everyday life. And so in a lot of steampunk, from what I've witnessed, you see people who create parts of their costume that are about the everyday way they live. And so people will do something as simple as having their flask on their side, or even, oddly enough, like eating utensils or something like that. But instead of them just being, a fork and knife or something, they do something with it to make it somehow more. Like taking a knife and making it a mechanical reciprocating knife.
Yeah.
That's using a little steam engine, like, and the knife cuts so you can just easily cut your meat, of course, because all the fine gentlemen would have a steam-powered knife. Why would you be such a simpleton to have to do the work yourself?
There's one of the pieces that was showcased on the Punked episode of Castle, and it's actually, I believe, owned by one of the biggest names in steampunk. It's a mechanical arm.
Oh.
It's a leather piece, but it's got metal pieces on it, and it looks like a mechanical arm. And it's just like those little details, things like that are like, well, does he actually use his arm, or did he have a problem? Was it destroyed in some sort of accident in the factory? And this is what is helping to restore his movements.
Yeah,
and
ability
his arms.
and such like that. I've seen other examples of things that people might be more familiar with, although I know this is going to be lost on you, Ken, because I'm going to reference anime.
Okay.
But like Full Metal Alchemist, to me, has a lot of pieces of things that would fit in a steampunk world.
Yes.
While itself not being traditional steampunk. Because like the automail and what they do with that. And again, people using these things every day in their life. And that's also where I see it a little bit Western in a way, because that's what speaks here to the United States very well. And it's silly, but almost like how Will Smith's Wild Wild West.
Oh my God. Yes.
As much as that's not necessarily a good movie, that speaks a lot to an Americanized kind of steampunk look.
And there are different genres of steampunk too. There is the Western steampunk. There is the Victorian steampunk. There is even Middle Eastern steampunk. And seeing all the different kinds of designs out there for the different areas of the world are amazing.
Nice.
Ooh, I've never seen Middle Eastern steampunk before, but that sounds really cool.
Well, and it speaks to one of the elements of steampunk, and there's a lot of things that I've seen in the world that does this, is you can, and I may be incorrect in this, but you can kind of steampunk anything.
Pretty much.
That you could take anything that you love from a different genre, from a different type of thing, be it games, movies, TV, whatever, characters of any kind, and create a steampunk look. There's some famous examples of there people creating things like steampunk Star Wars, right? With stormtroopers and Boba Fett and Darth Vader, anything that's armored, right? Anything that already kind of has a look to it, and then make it a steampunk.
Yeah. No Flutter is an artist who's been doing a whole bunch of DC girls, the Sailor Moon girls, all in Victorian styles and steampunk styles, and it's so cute because she actually uses the bright colors and everything too. So it's very true that way. Even though the short skirts might not be quite right for Victorian, but yeah, it's still cute.
No, that's awesome, and that's something else I want people to understand is that if you find an interest in something or a curiosity about checking out something like the steampunk world, there are a lot of ways to get into it. There's a lot of ways to become a part of it and to experience kind of what it is that steampunk's all about. And so you may be able to, and honestly, you get online and kind of as Beck's described, you can search anywhere, YouTube, Google Images, stuff like that, and you can find examples of steampunk everywhere. It's just it's pervasive. And for me, it's something I've always been on the edge of. I've been around and gone to the conventions of, but I've never embraced. And I desperately want to. And I also want to give people, one of the things I saw back in the day that confused me a little bit, or I was kind of like, is it really that bad? Was when I was watching The Guild. And I don't know if you've seen the episodes of The Guild that Felicia Day had made, but it was talking about being geeks around... What? Yes, Ken? Just because you have a bit of a thing.
Oh, don't worry, I've watched it enough for everybody in the room and possibly the state, country, and general territory nearby.
Nothing about little geeky redheads or anything, but
I just like Felicia Day. That's all.
Exactly.
I just find her a fantastic actress and perfect in every way.
Hashtag notice me, senpai. But no, the reason I bring up those in the Guild, when they go to the convention, one of the things they do is one of the episodes is they get in depth with steampunk, because as they go to a convention, there's a group on the side that is doing a very exclusive high society type of steampunk, where unless you are speaking the part, dressed the part, and they're doing essentially kind of a tea party style event, that they were very much looking down the nose at people who were just walking up like, oh, that's neat, versus people who truly understood it. And so they talk about it in the episode, and I bring it up because some people may think that steampunk is kind of snooty in a way like that because of examples that I've seen in the media like it, but my experience has been that steampunk, like so many of these geek culture things we do, is super inclusive.
Yeah. And like everything, you are going to have those people that are higher up and think they're better than everyone else, but I think with the steampunk community, those are few and far between.
And that's what I've experienced, because even though I've shown up in as little as brown pants, suspenders, and a kind of tan shirt, I had been embraced as me saying, well, I'm just kind of the farmer type, not so much I've actually don't have the money to, properly furnish myself. And people went with it. They were like, cool.
Oh yeah, because even yesterday I was over at Walmart getting my groceries, and walking through the parking lot, I look over and there's this guy walking by me. He's got a nice vest on, button-down shirt, nice hat, and I'm just like, oh, he's steampunky. He looks so good.
Well, and it also speaks to, I know a lot of ladies love steampunk, well, both sides, because it is about kind of dressing up for an occasion, where so many other things can be very casual and dressed down. There's a lot of steampunk where it is doing the full vests and jackets and coats, the nice dresses and petticoats and everything like that. So there's a lot of fashion to it that I think is appealing, especially around here where you don't see as much nice wear every day. People don't dress to the hilts just for no reason.
Yeah.
And
I would love to be able to dress like that every day, but I'm one of those people that feels weird with all the stares at you.
The attention?
Why are you dressing that way? So it's something I don't usually do very often.
Oh, come on, you just gotta own that.
The more people do, the less odd it becomes, I suppose. I mean, if people start doing it more on a daily basis, it would suddenly become the norm, right? So...
As one of my friends posted yesterday.
If you want to do it. You just need to become one with the movement.
As one of my friends posted yesterday, she's like, why are corsets not a thing for every day? And I was like, I know, right? Because I love corsets.
Well,
I would love to be able to wear them every day.
Well, there's the two sides, right? Because there's the corsets that I think people could wear every day, the fashionable that give a bit of shape kind of corsets, and then there's the why would you do that to yourself? For
where
show,
your waist
let
is
alone
like 2 inches big.
or the
the
Renaissance.
extreme waist training, those ones.
Oh, gosh.
Those ones I could never do, but
I've seen some extremes, right?
Yeah.
People that your physical insides cannot exist with that corset. But, and as well as the ones you'll get at like Renaissance Festival, stuff like that, the other side of it where it's like everything's a shelf.
yeah.
Things like that. But I believe you could corset in public daily with the right like blends to outfits and such.
Well, and it also depends on how it's made too. Some are made to cinch your waist down. As I mentioned earlier, the waist trainers, which will get you down to like a 10-inch waist.
Ah.
Or just a normal one like the one that I will be wearing later today gets me, if I tie it tight enough, down to 18 inches, but I will not be doing that. Or there's just ones that have just simple boning in it, not made to actually fit you down to anything, but just smooth everything out.
Gotcha. Just to kind of give you a shape.
To give you a little bit of a shape, yes.
And that's what I would see as the ones
Yeah.
that would be more commonly acceptable in everyday life. Because the other side is, why wouldn't you be able to wear a nice dress anywhere you go, or maybe carry a parasol or something like that? I mean, I can understand why maybe you shouldn't be carrying, a steam-powered Tesla gun or something like that with you around the streets.
Well, why
People might not
not?
understand.
Hey, it's legal in the US. Why not?
Exactly.
Probably can get away with it though, but
Yeah, that might be an interesting tweak on things. What are you open carrying? Oh, it's a steam-powered railgun. What? Not everybody carries those? That would be entertaining. Yeah, so I would love to see more often, and I catch on occasion, but costuming, what is traditionally considered costuming in everyday life, it's something that I'm really hoping to look forward to as I go to Japan next year, if I can make that all work, to see those areas in the culture where people do that regularly. I mean, even though it's limited to an area or something, but it's something that people do. I would love to see that around here, like, all the time.
And we used to do that in groups, because I remember doing that like 10 years ago or so. We would go out in costume and just go and have lunch or something, which actually doing that later today.
Yeah, essentially,
but you get those
cosplay
strange
faux.
looks anymore because people are like, what are these crazy people doing out here? And it can get kind of hard doing that when you're constantly being judged. One of the places we went to several years ago, we called ahead, told them we had a reservation, and when we got there, they sat everyone else ahead of us because we were in costume. They did not want to wait on us.
Wow. Oh, it's unfortunate when that still
that's just
happens.
discrimination at that point. I mean,
It
that's-
was
that's not
horrible.
fair.
We were so upset.
Oh yeah, no, that's terrible. And I've experienced that before. Even just going out like after a shoot or something like that,
Yeah.
after photos, and having them look at a group and say like, "Whoa." Admittedly, I mean, I had that. Well, no, actually, they treated us quite well. I was gonna say after I did my Mad Mary shoot or something where everyone was a bloody mess because we'd all been murdered. We went into a Village Inn and actually they let us right in. It was no problem, even though we were dripping with fake blood.
But then you do get the really cool servers and waiters and everything. They're like, oh, what were you guys doing? This looks like so much fun. And then you get that dialogue going on, and they become interested in maybe that's something they want to do, and they've never known how exactly to get into it. And now you're giving them an open.
True.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plus, there's always the point that they might actually get better publicity from it because suddenly people are tweeting, "Who are these guys? Anybody ever seen this before?" Take a photo, and then they get free publicity for the restaurant or for their bar or whatever. I mean, it seems like it's a free way to get extra advertising. I don't know why they'd be against that.
I think it's just people not understanding and seeing culture or anything that's just different from what they normally see in life, and so it's like anything. It's, right? Well, I mean, it is. It's a little different. It's just something that you don't normally catch, and so some people don't know how to deal with that. I mean, that's you see that in culture all the time. That people react poorly when it's something they don't understand. But the nice thing is, most of all the communities I've seen, especially when you stay away from anything that goes above, which is kind of like the convention scene and maybe like anything competitive, stuff like that, when it's just about the enjoying of whatever the subject matter is, I find that most people are very inclusive, very welcoming, happy to share what they're doing, and really embrace others that are doing it as well. So, I mean, I think that's something that's always been a draw for all of us who are around any of these communities.
Yes. And I've tried to do some of the competing stuff, and it kills me.
That's
I get
whole
so
nother
upset
world.
on the end, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore.
I've heard so many ups and downs with competing, especially for costuming and stuff like that, because like anything and any competition, there's a lot of inside things that occur and personalities and things around them. And so for me, I costume because it's fun. I costume because I want people to recognize the characters I'm doing and understand the celebration I'm doing with the character. And that's really it. The recognition that someone might give me a trophy or something would be fine, but at the same time, I never want to accidentally do so good that I get pulled into a category like, Masters or something, because one time I did a great costume, and then forever after that I have to spend my life making costumes or something, because I would never
Gotta
be
try
able
to
to
live up
compete.
to that one time.
Right. Well, because even for like NYE this year, I've purchased my base costume, and then I'm going to edit it into the character I want it to be, because I can't yet sew every costume ever.
Well, that's what I did for my first one. I still didn't get it done in time, and it made me so sad. And I have it in my closet. I have yet to wear it.
Oh no, the never quite complete costume, which actually,
Yes.
I have to ask if you agree with me on this one, but I have also argued for people who do costumes that no costume is ever complete.
Yes and no. And there's also the costume is never complete until you've spilled at least one drop of blood on it.
Well, that's when it brings life, when you've christened it. So, but yeah, no,
I've yet to do that on this newest one, thank God, because it's all white.
Ooh. You just have to make sure you do it in an inside layer or something. Just to
Yeah.
say, there, done. Don't you take any more.
On the bottom hem where no one's gonna see it.
But I say that because I can always see something to edit, change, or manipulate in a costume I've made. Even if I've gotten to a point where I'm quite happy with it, I'm always on the look where if I ever found a better pair of shoes, or if I ever found, a new material that would accent it even better, I might change a piece and redo it. That's why, to me, it feels like I've never been done. I may have worn a costume complete multiple times, but it doesn't mean I've ever been finished with it completely. Like, I'll just put a pin in it and say, never again, I'm done, I only wear this one now. I can never make it better.
I definitely have a couple of those. One of my very first costumes, sadly, I had no idea what I was doing. I was working with the satin fabric, and I had a denim needle on my machine, and it was literally, it was literally falling apart at the seams by the end of the weekend. I have all the material and everything to remake it, but if I ever actually get to it, that's a whole nother story.
Oh my God! So, pro tip, people, when it comes to sewing, needle selection is so important.
So
you need the right needle. There's a reason they make needles for different materials.
I had no idea there were different kinds of needles because this was the first time I ever did anything with a sewing machine. So I had no idea there were different needles. I had no idea my mom already had a denim needle on there. So I was like, oh, why is this ripping?
Oh gosh, yeah, and that's the thing. The first time you go from all cotton, where you can get away with a lot of mistakes, to going to heavier materials like denim, or going to lighter materials like silks and satins and anything like that, that's when you will break yourself. So, pro tip, and like everything, look online. There will be advice.
Yep.
Oh gosh. All right. I want to transition over, now we've talked about some of the steampunk culture and things, to one of your other talents, which is that of writing.
Okay.
And I want to kind of go back because you are working on a book right now that'll be coming out soon. But I'd like to know what kind of got you into writing in the first place before you started working on the book that you have.
Oh, good Lord. I think I first started writing back in middle school, and it was just because little things here and there, either something in a TV show or just something that I saw in everyday life, just a random little conversation, sparked this idea, and it grew into this giant story. And I was like, okay, but I want to keep this idea going, so I start writing it down, and it ends up exploding into this giant thing that completely takes over my life for several months.
Okay.
I know one of my stories that I started several years ago, but I never finished it because I lost all the information. My computer crashed.
Oh no!
It was based off of it was based off these two dreams that I had, one right after the other, about this other world with mages having a complete and total civil war over the whole entire planet, and whether it was going to be complete destruction or complete peace was all up to one girl.
Oh, interesting. and that's all you know still of the plots you were going to make?
I had everything planned out, but the notes that I saved for every little detail that popped into my head, all the snippets that I had already written, gone.
Ah! So is that now something that's just kind of back burner that you hope to revisit?
Maybe.
Or have you let it just kind of say...
Once I'm done with everything having to do with the Leviathan Mysteries series, maybe I'll go back to some of these old stories that I had started on, and I just... At the time, I did not have the right words. The right kind of writing style to make it actually work out.
Ah, gotcha.
And it was horribly written anyway to begin with, so...
Well, come on. Anything that you initially start off with, I don't know the writer or the musician or the singer, anyone who day one they jumped on something, they were like, wow, I'm a prodigy, look at me. I don't need any of that training or something. I'm successful now.
I think one of my longest written stories, it took 10 years and I still hasn't finished with it. And I had gone back and rewritten the beginning of it, I think 3 times, because from when I first started to when I finally got up to the point that I was, and I went back and started reading, I was like, no, that sounds like crap now. So I would start rewriting that, and then I would get to the end point, and I'm like, okay, now this needs to be rewritten again.
Oh, no. Well, but, I mean, revision is real.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think that's why so many people, you get that external editor so that you could just put everything out there and get it mostly right and say, all right, someone else make sure it's good.
Did I use the right words?
Yes. Did that make sense, or did that only work in my head?
Yes.
Okay, so you've been writing for a while.
Yeah.
Have you had any work that has been published or is out there that people would be able to find? That, since I know you are still working on your current book.
I'm not sure if you can purchase it anymore, but it's not exactly fiction or anything like that. I wrote an article for a Haunted magazine, a paranormal magazine.
Ooh.
They were looking for some people to do some articles in the magazine, and I got this idea to start a series, but I never got to finish the series. I just had the one article about haunted dolls.
Oh, yikes.
That's
and
cool.
I actually got to visit the location for this one article and tried to actually see the building that this doll was kept in, because there were so many stories of, was it the doll that was haunted or was it the building that was haunted, and I wanted to check the building out, but it was now a private residence, so
Oh, gosh.
I was sad about that.
Well, no, all you gotta do is walk in the door and be like, you do realize this is haunted, don't you?
I kind of wanted to. And it was like, as we were leaving the town, they were pulling up. As we were leaving town, they were pulling up to the house, and I was like, oh, I want to go ask them if I can check out their house.
Nah. Yeah, I could see how that would be so tempting. No, that's cool. So, as we're going, we're getting there, so I want to make sure we cover the book that you're working on. What do you want? How would you describe it to people? We set it up a little bit because we talked about steampunk culture for quite a bit of the show today with you. Knowing, for me, that the book you write is a steampunk book.
Yes. When I started doing the research, because I decided I was going to write this for National Novel Writing Month, which actually is taking place this month. I'm not writing this month, though. I'm sorry. This one I did a few years ago. I did a whole month of research the month before, and I just started with looking through the Victorian timeline. Was there anything that I could work with? And then I got to the year 1888 and the Jack the Ripper cases.
Ooh.
And I was like, ooh, this might be something that I could really work with. And if you've ever seen Black Butler, there is a little hint to the Jack the Ripper cases and it not being a man that actually does it, but someone else. So I played with that a little bit with this one in particular, this book. But the series is going to extend past this, but yeah.
Plans and details.
Shh, spoilers.
So, so in this book that you're writing, what is the main character it follows? Is it one that's following because you're hinting at this being around the same kind of events, Jack the Ripper kind of concept? So murders, of course. And
Yeah.
so is it following the events in such a way that it's the person who's causing the murders? Is it someone investigating the murders? Is it someone who's getting chased?
It's a set of two people that are investigating the murders. One is she was born into high class, but because she didn't exactly fit into her father's stereotype of what she should be, she was kicked out of the house. And she started growing up on the streets for several years. She was taken in after a case at the beginning of the book by one of the highest, well-known, wealthiest men in London. Kind of like a Victorian Batman, as I've kind of dubbed him.
Gotcha.
And he is handed over the case of Jack the Ripper after the double murder of Catherine and, oh my gosh, I forgot her name. It's been so long. But there was a double murder for Jack the Ripper one night where it was one murder right after the other because he could not finish with the first murder. And after that, he's handed off the case, and that's when they start getting involved with it.
Okay. And so is it kind of bounced back and forth between the two main characters there, or is it more focused on her, like, introduction to the world or such? Or
it goes back and forth between the two because I found with what I plan on doing later in the story, with further down in the other novels, it's going to be hard to focus on just one person since they are going to end up being separated.
Gotcha. And so to tell a bigger story, you're going to have it keep bouncing between multiple perspectives. Very cool. So knowing that you have the setting of what's going on, what about the way you're writing it and the world you're presenting really makes it steampunk?
There's the little bit of robotic flair. The main character, Vanessa, she has an extremely brilliant mind. Her father is a airship pilot, which is more in this era rather than planes and things like that. Zeppelins, airships, things like that. She's thank you. She comes up with what I have dubbed the Wind Rider. It is like a giant surfboard with a kite on it that she can actually fly through the air with either one or two riders on it.
Interesting.
If you've ever seen Treasure Planet, it's kind of like Jim's Solar Surfer.
Interesting. See, I was initially picturing almost like a hang glider, but instead of you strapping to it, kind of below it being attached to a board or something flying. That was my initial. So.
But yeah, she invents a lot of different kinds of things. I'm going to introduce another one in the next book. Hopefully, if I can figure out how to work it in, but it's going to be kind of a play on a motorcycle.
Interesting. And so is this something where a lot of the technology that you're going to bring up in the steampunk world that you're speaking of, how much of this is stuff that you feel is kind of known throughout the steampunk world compared to things that are your own ideas that you've been able to kind of piece together and think that this is my twist on a way of transportation, a weapon, a tool, or whatever the case may be? Because technology is so important to steampunk.
It's a little bit of both. Excuse me. Some of it might be stuff that kind of would be recognizable in the steampunk community already, but you can see it also being in our world with a slight twist. So, as I said, the motorcycle, it's not going to be as small as what you think a motorcycle is going to be. It's going to have a giant steam engine on the back of it.
And thus to still get propulsion.
Yes.
Well, because I know for me, and Ken, I think you're kind of similar in the sense that I really love tech. And so for me, one of the things about steampunk is how people are inventive in mixing what we know to be modern concepts, but with an old flair to how to produce it. That's really one of those key pieces of steampunk.
That is cool, yeah.
And so for me, seeing something, especially as you're telling a detective story to a degree, I hope, just my personal, I'm curious to see, when I get the opportunity to read it, to see what you do with it, but the ability for them to use very steampunk tools to investigate a scene, to look around something instead of just looking like, oh, well, I just scraped a little of this into a microscope. It's like, having like someone having, off the top of my head, like, a backpack that is a full lab kit or something where they pull out almost like an eye spectacle, microscope right there. So it's
kind of
on
like
the
in
field.
Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow, the items that Ichabod uses
Exactly,
for his
right?
investigations.
It's the things that are just, they don't necessarily exist, but you could see how someone who's a bit out there with their creativity and designs could do that to make their life easier. The beginning of all technology is how do we make our lives simpler than by creating a tool to make it that way. And so, yeah, with the Steam Flare. So I'm very curious to see how that works into the
And I
storyline.
tried to figure out a way that the windsurfer could actually work in a reasonable way. So it was kind of a mix between Jim's Solar Surfer and, oh my gosh, Steam Boy. The movie Steam Boy.
Ooh,
I've
I
only
don't know if
seen
I've
it.
seen it.
I've only seen it once, but there was something about the way that he used this canister of pressurized steam in order to propel himself through the town that kind of worked its way into how to develop the windsurfer.
Nice. Like I said, I'm going to be super curious to see how the tech and everything blends together, because that's such a big part of it to me. When it comes to steampunk, the fashion and the tech, they are huge parts of it. So no, that I'm looking forward to it. Do you have? I say the ultimate question always comes to when you start hearing about new things being created is an expectation or a question of, do you have any hope as to when you plan on getting this published so that people are ready to consume and see your book?
I'm hoping by the end of the year.
Okay.
I'm pushing as hard as I can to get this dress done so that I can finally get the cover made and then get the book out there.
So it's written, it's ready.
It's written, it's ready. It just needs a cover.
Just needs the packaging. So yes, you just got to get on and make it so it's pretty, and so that everyone can find it. No, that's good to hear. So want to make sure that people are able to go find it when it's available. Mm-hmm. So make sure of that. Could we make sure to, and I'll have it in the show notes, everyone as well, but what would probably be the best way for people to follow your progress of all of your things, so that they can keep track of when the book comes out as well as anything else you're involved in?
Well, I have 2 different pages kind of to help keep it not as so much chaotic. One page I have on Facebook is for my author's page. It's on Beck Stewart Author at Facebook.
And if anybody follows us on Facebook as well, you can actually see it because we shared it today and I think last week as well. So you can check it out there. Give them a like and as a thank you for being on the show today, and to check out all future content, of course, as well.
Yeah, that's one of the pages, and then the other one, which is more the costuming and the crafts kind of stuff, is New Moon Crafts on Facebook.
Awesome. And we didn't get as much, I think, into the into the craft work. We got into the costuming a lot. But in craft things, is there anything that you want people to know that you're working on or they can get from you, something like that with the crafting?
One of the things that I'm working on right now, well, not right now, but as soon as I'm done with this dress, I'm hoping to get a set of Sculpey necklaces. You use a stone in the center of it, and Sculpey is wrapped around it in a kind of tentacle design. It's going to be kind of drawn into the Leviathan Mysteries
Ah,
books.
nice.
So
actual fashion from your stories.
yes.
Ooh, even more to be aware of. That is very good. Very cool. Awesome. All right. So I'm saying these to make sure we get these covered because we're gonna get close to the break here, and afterwards we're gonna transition over to talk a little more of our normal show content because I know there's things we have to talk about this week, and I'm sure Ken's biting and chomping on the bit. But to make sure we cover everything with you, Beck, to ensure that, so we've got the crafting page stuff. Your Instagram?
Instagram, yes, I do have an Instagram. It's kind of a little bit of everything, personal life, costuming, and things like that. You can find me at Dark Side of Moon.
And that's Dark Side with an SYD, a number 3, and for the O's, there's zeros for moon.
Yes.
So, and that'll be in the show notes as well, so you guys can check out everything that Beck's doing
Yep.
and be able to keep up and be ready for what's the title of the first book?
The first book is called Bloody Notes.
Bloody Notes, part of the Leviathan series?
The Leviathan Mystery Series.
Leviathan
Yes.
Mystery Series, Bloody Notes, to start things off, hopefully, by the end of this year, if everything goes right and we have some great creative artwork on the front for it.
God, I hope so.
I have every
My
confidence.
photographer is like, "What is taking so long?" I'm like, "I'm so sorry. It's not working out the way I thought it was going to."
That's all right. I'm sure that you will be able to get it done. I've seen a lot of your costuming things, and it's always really, really good. So everyone, please make sure to check out Beck's page and check out what she's been doing. We are going to take a little bit of an early break and come back with our dysfunctional deviations, our actual dysfunctional deviations. Continue on. Before that, Ken, is there anything else you wanted to ask of Beck before we let her go from talking just about yourself?
Sure. I was actually wanting to ask, first of all, what are your future plans in the coming months of conventions and such? Where can people find you if you're going out into the real world? They can find you. And second of all, is there anywhere else online you'd like to pimp out before we do go to the break?
I believe we are trying to go to Starfest to have a table at Starfest,
Which is the sci-fi convention beginning of next year.
Yeah. It's going to be at the Marriott DTC this coming year. They are finally going to be finishing with that hotel.
I know. The renovations, so long.
I'm excited about that one. The only other page that I have is my author's blog on Tumblr, which is under Beck Stewart.
So awesome. Well, thank you very much for that.
Fantastic.
We will be... All right, we're going to take a break. Beck, you'll be welcome to stay with us and talk other things after the break. Up to you. But that, hopefully, everyone for you is a good introduction into Beck Stewart. Please check out all of her pages and things. She's very creative. She has some amazing photos out there of all the costumes she's done. You can check them out on Facebook. And for those that don't have Facebook, I'm trying to think if there's other places. The Instagram, they should be able to see.
Instagram, Tumblr.
Yeah, Tumblr. For those who
I
don't
do not do
it.
Twitter because I write too much for Twitter's.
140 characters limits you?
No, I can't do that.
What? As a writer? What? So, no. So, both those. But yeah, definitely check out her work. It's really, really great stuff. I've had the honor and pleasure of shooting her a few times with photos. And so, some of the stuff.
I might want to make that more specific. Photos.
I said photos. People know I shoot photos. That's all. I always struggle with that because I don't know what else I would say other than shoot photos.
Because I shoot archery, so.
That's funny. I just shot
good
photos.
one, actually, yeah.
No, there's all kinds of things you can shoot, right? But for me, I don't know how else to describe other than like I take pictures. I don't know. I always run into that. And I just say, nope, I shoot it. Deal with it. I shoot people. But it just
And then you frame them too.
it just happens to be with a camera. Yeah. I shoot people. I frame them. And I always am in the background. Nobody ever sees me involved. That's good. All right. So with that, we'll take a break.
No, yeah.
Yeah, on that note, we're going to take a break. You're going to listen to a song from our good friend Leo, because it's been a little while since we've had a bit of metal influence. Yes, and we all love what Leo provides. And this one, not quite steampunk related, but I think it has a good theme to it that fits well enough for style. And after that, we'll come back with a little bit of dysfunctional deviations. So you guys are listening to Show X on VTWProductions.com, and we'll be back right after this.
Send in your emails to showx at vtwproductions.com.
Well, this car could be systematic, hydromatic, ultramatic. Why it could be grease lightning? Grease lightning. We'll get some overhead lifters and pour down quads, oh yeah. Fuel injection caught up in chrome blender rods, oh yeah. With the force beat on the floor, never waiting at the door. You know that ain't no shit, we're beginning out of ditch. Grease lightning. Oh, grease lightning, you're burning up the quarter mile. Go grease lightning. Go grease lightning, you're coasting through the heat of trials. Go grease lightning. You are supreme, the chicks are green. For grease lightning.
to Show X on btwproductions.com.
Ken's gone.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the show. So
Yeah.
it's funny because I don't know if I told Ken exactly how short that song was, so he has left the room on us, but hopefully we'll be back shortly. We shall see. But we are going to get into things here with officially a bit of...
Functional deviations.
Oh, look, he's back from touching up his makeup, maybe.
No, we'll see. Did you see him walk into
I
the room?
thought I saw him on the side of the screen there.
Do you see a tank running? Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Wait, okay, everybody be quiet. Everybody be quiet. He's back.
Stop talking
I
about
can
it.
hear you, you know.
Oh, hey, everybody. Look at that. Just in time. Back on the show. How's it going? Oh, hey, Ken. No.
Very good, very good.
No, I jokingly would say that I just had not warned you about how short that song was. So there's that. Anyhow, we are back from the break, and it's now time for dysfunctional deviations. So, Ken, what have you been up to this last week that has not been geeky and such?
Oh, jeez. Okay, so can you guys still hear me? Yeah, 'cause I just heard a bit of lag.
Oh, no, we're fine. We're fine. But we're getting the little note saying internet connect problems.
Yeah,
but,
it's jumping back and forth.
Uh-oh.
but we hear you all right, so... Oh, and it's
no.
dead. Dead. And back to life?
That was really nice of Skype to let me know that we're about to lag out by making it slowly degrade instead of just cutting off. That's
Exactly.
some future tech right there.
That's right. I get to say it killed the call. I get to send the feedback to Skype saying, "No, it ended prematurely. You fail." So,
And I'll hold back all the jokes. All right.
Exactly.
So, so how's my non-geek week been? You're asking.
yes.
It's been fine. Nothing crazy been happening. I've been doing a lot of work recently. I did a 6-day week this week.
Ouch.
Just because I've got a lot of stuff and I've got a lot of deadlines coming up in the next couple months, and I want to try and get ahead of it just now rather than be panicky during the Christmas period. I don't want to be doing that kind of work. I don't want to get up Christmas morning and thinking, I should really be working on that yada 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 yada.
Yep.
Yeah. I'd rather get up Christmas morning and be like, I know I'm free to do what I want today. So that's kind of what I'm working on just now, is earning my Christmas, I guess. But honestly, I've not got much else to report. I've had a very otherwise dull week. I presented a poster in Glasgow, so I went through to Glasgow to present my work, and I had this interesting experience actually. I had this gentleman approach me, and he said to me, the first thing he said to me was, I came all the way through from Edinburgh, so from a different city within Scotland, came all the way from Edinburgh to Glasgow just to see you and talk to you. And I went, oh, okay. That's pretty terrifying, but okay. And he says, yeah, so I work in this company that basically does the same kind of stuff that you work on. And I was like, okay, cool. And he says, yeah, and we're looking for people. So would you? He didn't specifically say, we're trying to hire you or anything.
Yeah.
He just said, just give us a call at some point. Here's our card. And I was like, okay. And we started talking back and forth. And at one point, he asked me, so do you have any published work? And I said, well, actually, yeah, I've published a research paper, which is you can find here. And I gave him the details. And I said it's at the IEEE conference, which anybody in any engineering field, any electronic field, any
Should
kind
know.
of field that involves technology should have an understanding of what the IEEE is.
Yep.
And this guy says to me, I've never heard of them, but I'll look it up. And that just set off these massive like red signals in my mind. Warning! You're about to be scammed. And I sort of realized this guy might be here trying to scam me, trying to make me come work for him. And I don't know what his plan was. Maybe it was to steal my work. Maybe it was to make me work without pay. Maybe, I don't know. But the fact that he didn't know of what the IEEE, which is a very huge organization, is
it is involved in everything. It's the standards board, really.
If you know what the internet is, if you have a big understanding of the internet, you'll have heard of the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. It's a huge board, and they're the guys who are partly in charge of how web pages should be displayed. And that's just one of the small number of many things they do.
If you've ever
they're
seen
consulting
something that references IEEE and a number behind it, right? It is that organization's ruling or document or something on a standard or something, right? It is when that organization has said, there you go. So it's all around. Even if you haven't really read it or known it, you have seen IEEE somewhere, anywhere around tech.
If you find like a random TV, you'll see like some standard on the side that says, "Oh, IEEE protocol, confirmed" or something. Basically meaning that they use a technology which has been accepted as a standard by the IEEE, meaning that it's a good standard, meaning that your TV is a good TV, and that's kind of what they're hinting at, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And because this guy didn't know what the IEEE was, yet he was offering me a job in this, He was approaching a PhD student, somebody who's a doctoral candidate, somebody who should have a fairly good idea about this kind of stuff. Clearly, he'd read a lot about my field, because he kept talking about my field stuff. But this more general aspect, he had no idea, which just raised so many alarm bells. Since he said he was the owner of this company, and I was like, you must know. How could you possibly be the owner of this company, of this like forefront of research like thing that we're working on here? And yet you have no idea what I'm talking about. So apparently there are scammers at these events. I've never heard of this before. I didn't realize it was a thing. But I was like, yeah, sure, I'm going to give you a call, guy. Sure thing. Definitely be giving you a call. So that was weird.
Oh, that is odd. And yes, something definitely for red flags. Good that you didn't get taken in.
Indeed. It was all fine in the end. But other than that, I've had a pretty normal, just high workload, rather dull week.
Gotcha.
So that's all from me. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I had was kind of something that will probably tie into what I'm sure you'd like to talk about. Is because I went to a play last night held at a local community college, and it was called the Collective Heart Project. And essentially, it was a project where a lot of little short. It was they weren't one acts. They were all like little presentations in the first half of the overall play. The first act of it was all these short presentations that were based on a 48-hour creativity project where they spent time where they put booths up around the college campuses and allowed anybody to go into them, and were presented with some questions that were related to the election here in the United States and just general like Americana kind of things, but asking them what they thought and their reactions. Things like, what do you pledge allegiance to? Or what does the flag of America represent to you? Or just things like that. And the answers, they just had a big collection of them, and they basically gave these students a chance to spend 48 hours to be creative and come up with some way of representing some of these answers. And so
that's cool.
There were all these short segments, everything from kind of spoken word, like poetry type, to songs, to quick performances, all these variety of things that all tied into it. And I thought it was really interesting. And for me, an insight into a demographic that I haven't been around as much lately, since I work and I have the people I deal with at work and then friends outside of there. But these were all students, right? These were all college students that had gotten through this. And then the second act was a one-act play called Dream Lost and Found, which was performed by most of the people participating, that told a little story about just... it was a lot of themes in a story, but about kind of a loss of self of America and a coming back and finding kind of thing. So anyhow, that's what I did yesterday. And like I said, it was interesting. It was kind of some random thing where I had a friend that was hanging out. We were watching movies and then was saying like, hey, let's go. I go to this thing that my father's in. And I was like, I'll go check it out. I've been to one other play that's CCA. Why not? And so I went and saw it and I was pretty impressed. I thought the performances were great. I say that though, but it was an interesting insight into people's reactions to the major event that happened in our country here in the last week, which was that the United States has elected its next president. And for anyone who's been living without any kind of technology or means to see news of any form, the results of that election was that Donald Trump was able to collect enough electoral votes through the process to be selected as the next United States president, and he will be inaugurated next year, beginning of next year, for when he takes his office. And so that has happened here in the United States, and we are now in this position of transitioning power, where the current office, presidency, cabinet, everyone else is going to work on what they need to transition into what will be the next, essentially, the next presidential office coming in under Donald Trump. So that's the state of affairs we're in today. And I wasn't sure. I know we've talked about this on multiple shows before, Ken, but I'm always curious also what perspective you've seen from your side of the pond.
You're opening a can of worms, sir.
And we don't have to go down it necessarily.
I'm happy to discuss it, and I'll try to keep it short. But so I have seen. I like to think that I always try to make an attempt to see both sides of it, right? I think the media portrays very hardcore in our country and in yours the left-wing liberal side of things, apart from Fox News, of course. And so I from my entire my entire circle of friends, all of my family, all of my colleagues, all share a liberal viewpoint on Brexit, on the American presidential candidates, on pretty much everything. And I've always tried to keep a sort of central view. I don't like to be too liberal. I don't want to be too conservative. I like to have a little bit of both. I make a point of looking at both sides of candidates and seeing what they can both offer, and try my hardest to ignore what the media says. The media says this guy's racist. I try to ignore it. They say this person's corrupt. I try to ignore it. I try to look into it myself and see what I can find and see what evidence there truly is, rather than having somebody who's backed by the money of these people. So with that sort of caveat, I think that, first of all, the UK is generally surprised about how we already knew that you worked with an electoral college, or at least I did, because I did a small module during my university studies on politics, and I know that I had a vague understanding of how the electoral system worked, and I knew there was an electoral college, right? I've looked into it myself before as well. And so I knew that it wasn't about the majority of votes. And that's never really been an issue in the past. It's never been a point that whoever gets the most votes wins. It's been more about who gets the most states, who gets the most electoral votes in total. And so the fact that Donald Trump won without the popular vote, to our country in the UK, is a crazy thing. Because to us, it should just be a sheer first-past-the-post voting mechanism, which is whoever gets the most votes wins. And in this case, it seems that Donald Trump, I believe there's still 2 states who haven't actually confirmed their voting status. I don't know if I'm correct with that, but feel free to tell me the truth.
I knew of at least one, but I haven't followed whether they finally finished it, because regardless, the electoral turnout would not have changed.
Yeah, I think it was still 600,000 behind or whatever it was. So I don't think it makes any difference whatsoever. However, because to us it's just about numbers, like whoever has the most votes should win is the way. So everybody here is very shocked and surprised that that's not how it works. But when you look at the actual electoral map and you see that the US, by far the majority of states are red and not blue, in that sense I can understand why Donald Trump has won. However, it does shock and dismay many people within the UK. So there's that. The next point I kind of want to bring up is that it's saddening to me in a way that all we heard was the liberal point of view up until now. There were so many media outlets on the left-hand side that were just continually saying things like Hillary was going to win with a 98% presidential electorate. And that's insane, right? They were saying there was a 98% likelihood that she would win on the day of the election when it was just about to begin. And that is clearly a very inaccurate figure. The fact that they were saying that was based entirely on social media tweets, on what other people were saying, other media outlets were saying, and yet they were all within their own little biosphere, their own little spectrum, and they refused to look outside that and think about the outside world. They only thought about what the millennials have been posting online, and not what the majority of people within the US have actually been thinking and want to do. And it's sad to me that so many people felt that because if what is it, 52% of the US are white, right? They're white people. 52% of the US is a white population.
I'm not sure what our demographic actually is,
I have
unfortunately.
no idea actually either.
I don't know that kind of percentage. I know there's a lot. We categorize ourselves a lot of different ways, but that number I don't know.
I know that a lot of the people that were the minorities are starting to get bigger, and
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
melting
believe-
pot more.
yeah.
I believe I saw 52% a few days ago. I may be wrong, but
Okay, no, cool.
So if it was 52% of the U.S. is currently white, as in not Hispanic, as in not black, as in not whatever else, right? That means that approximately 26% of the population are white males. And the media has been continually saying that white males won Donald Trump the presidency. But if it's only 26%, that is clearly impossible. Clearly it is not, and even if every single white male in the U.S. voted Donald Trump, that is not a majority. There must have been a number of people who are female, who are POCs, and I hate that term because I find it very...
Gotcha. It took me a second to
Took you a
translate
second.
it.
He's
Yeah,
like,
it took me a
"What?
second to translate it because I don't think of that term. POCs of me are people are persons of contact or whatever.
We shouldn't think of that term because to me it is intentionally trying to say, look, we are different. And in my opinion, that's a stupid thing. We shouldn't even see ourselves as different. And that's a whole different, again, a different kind of worms I don't want to open. But regardless, if only 26% of the population who voted for Donald Trump, then he wouldn't be president. And it goes to show that there are minorities out there who stood up and said, I want Donald Trump as a president. And what's really sad, the saddest thing about this whole election, which I really think is one of the most important aspects with the whole thing, is that this was not seen in the news. We did not see the viewpoint of the minorities, be the male, female, be the of different ethnicities, different religions. We did not see why these people wanted to vote for Trump. We did not hear their voice. We did not hear their point of view. And it's the same problem that we have in the West just now, where we have universities that are banning speakers because they're seen to be hate speakers. We're banning people from speaking in public and having the right to free speech. We're removing this because we see it as harmful. And yet, because of this overly authoritarian view set of the Western people, of the Western media especially, we avoid people who actually have a contrary point of view. Even if it's not harmful. Just because just mere weeks ago, days ago, if somebody was to stand on the news on MSNBC or something like that and said, I think Trump has a chance of winning, they would have been laughed off the stage. And that's clearly
Well,
when we're standing on the other side of this week, the other side of the week, we can say clearly that was not a horrible thing to say. Clearly there was merit to that point of view. Clearly Trump had the majority. Clearly he did, and we should have heard these people speaking. If we heard them speak, perhaps we could have convinced them otherwise. Perhaps we could have had open discussion. Perhaps we could have persuaded them one way or another. Perhaps we could have actually had some left-wingers go more right, some right-wingers go more left, and we could have had an open discussion about what would be the best thing for the country. But instead, the media was the problem here and said specifically, we should not speak about this. We should only hear one point of view, and we should become complacent. And as a country, I believe the US was ignorant in their vote, not because of what they voted, but because the majority of people either chose not to vote because they thought it was already set in stone. When they were told it's going to be a 98% majority of Hillary, they decided there's no need to vote. And that was harmful. That was incredibly harmful, clearly, to the results. What should have happened is an open discourse with unbiased media, with non-partisan media, came up and said, this is what people really think, this is what the minorities, the majority, what everybody clearly thinks, here is everybody's point of view, let's talk about it, instead of saying, we cannot talk about the other side, we are against them, let's shut them up. And what happened is the quiet majority stood up and said, no, we want change. And that caused the way that's what caused the current problem. That's what caused everybody to be unhappy right now. I think both Republicans and Democrats, overall, as a majority, on both sides, are unhappy with the current results. I think the majority of Republicans want
Well,
Trump.
so it's
I think the Democrats did not want Trump, but I think everybody wanted change. I think everybody wanted to change, and that's why Trump came in. And I think that's
there's
why
a few sides of it, because I do agree with you that based on what I had been hearing in the media, it felt as though the election was going to be much more sided a different direction. That Hillary had a higher chance of winning by far, based on what I was hearing going into the election. I will say that I think the numbers I saw was that 46% of overall voting age Americans did not participate in the
It was
election.
something ridiculous.
It was basically half of the potential voters did not, for whatever reasons that might be. I thought it would be higher because I'd seen a lot of noise that I thought people were going to be out voting, much more so. And the lines I had seen in voting booths, stuff like that, made me think that was going to be the case. Plus, to the number of people who had already pre-voted and stuff like that, I thought it was going to be a higher turnout than it was. I mean, there were people who were calling saying that, you know, they thought Trump was going to win. Now, granted, I agree with you, and the media kind of portrayed it in such a way that they seemed like the diehards that weren't necessarily representative of what the majority thought, or even half of the country thought, but in a way that it was, you know, but you knew there were people that definitely were on the Trump side. It's interesting for me because social media, for me, I use it as a means to have insight into what a lot of very diverse groups of people think, because you can see how people post and what they like and the kind of things they'll make, you know, their own posts on. And it allowed me to get just feelings towards a very diverse group of opinions. Very diverse opinions, because I have people from every walk of life who are on my social media feeds. And so
That's good.
I had a sense that there was a much closer race going on than maybe the media presided. Because especially where I work and kind of people I was around, I heard a lot of the opinions of people as to why they were going to vote. And I in a way, arguing for what you're saying as well, Ken, not for Hillary. And I said it before, where most people I found were voting against someone than for someone. They're very, you know, people, you know, because it seemed like almost everyone I knew who openly were saying they were voting for somebody voted third party, because that was, you know, the only examples of people that they could truly get behind and support their opinions, where most people were voting against another party. And, you know, that for whatever reason they have. Now, I will on both sides, because this is me totally saying I would not have been happy with the election results with either Hillary or Donald winning.
That's a really good point. Me neither. I think,
and I've talked about before. I would have had my preference overall for who, you know, of the winning, but neither one of them represents what I believe the country needs. But with that stated, how do I want to say? I saw from both sides reasons people disliked each candidate, and some fervently against either or. I saw people who absolutely despise Hillary Clinton for so many different reasons, and especially from the area I work, people who truly believe that she had done things that should have put her in prison, or at least in front of something like that, to the other side of people who truly could not support someone like Donald Trump, who so openly has said a lot of things that people can easily point to as being not very representative of someone that you'd want in a worldly leadership position. Just so many blatant in-your-face examples that way too. So it was hard, because even though you could show the faults of either candidate, but people, depending on what they found important to them, would choose one or the other based on that. And so I say it that way because everybody has, I've said this many times when it comes to politics, everybody has their hot button issues. The things that they care about. And in doing so, they may find a candidate that also cares about their most important things. And because of that, they may let a lot of other things go and not worry about so many of the other issues that people might find that they would disagree with. And that's because I've yet to find the candidate that absolutely represents anybody. But so when you weigh it that way, you know, most people vote for someone that more aligns with their views, or in this case, against somebody who more doesn't align with their views. And it's usually some very specific issues that causes it. I always say there's emotional issues here.
Oh, there's definitely emotion behind it. And that's kind of one of the big problems. Again, speaking back to in Britain, I feel like we can strongly relate to the problems, or again, with the current ongoings in the US, because with there's so many liberal people who are upset right now because of Trump getting in, we can really understand that. Scotland was almost entirely against Brexit, like with a massive majority. But it's not about Scotland, it's about Britain, and we were just entirely ignored in that sense.
Well, and right after your whole vote, right? Right after your previous vote about staying in the UK. versus leaving.
Yeah, that's why. One of the main reasons why people were suggesting they wanted to stay here was because they wanted to stay in the EU. They wanted to stay in the UK in order to stay in the EU, and then suddenly we left the EU. So it was as if we were promised something and it was snatched away. Now I am speaking devil's advocate here because I did vote. I was pro Brexit, and so and I'm actually, but I was pro Union for Britain.
I know you're so not a Scotsman.
I'm not. I'm very British in this sense, and I'm very anti-Scotsman in this sense. I'm a bit of an anomaly, to be honest.
I mean, that lack of an accent, your viewpoints politically, all those things. I mean,
and I know, but I feel like we can kind of. I understand why people are upset with that. I don't get me wrong. I understand it. However, I still would. Hey, Indie Ref 2, as it's currently been called, Scotland's second referendum to leave Britain.
Oh, geez.
Seems to be a go. It seems to be going ahead.
Oh, I'm sure people are all over it now.
I look forward to seeing what happens.
That's all right. We'll just call you guys.
Interesting, regardless.
We'll just call you guys Texas. It'll be good.
It's not inaccurate. It's not inaccurate at all. But I think we can really empathize with how you guys are feeling right now. A lot of people in the US are feeling like we voted this way, the countries seem to be going this way, and yet it seems like we're almost betrayed. And so I feel like the Scottish people can kind of understand what the American people are going through. That being said, I can also understand the other side. I can understand why I feel like the left wing, like liberalism in general, in the West, not just in the US, in all the Western countries and many European countries, liberalism has had a fantastic foothold in the past 20 years. And yet, due to these massive advancements in liberal ideologies, we've gotten to a point where many people feel like it's not fast enough and have become almost extremist with the liberal ideologies and wish for it to go even faster. They start complaining about minor issues. I mean, we have countries in the world where I'm sorry to go for such a horrendous topic, but I understand this.
Preach, son, preach.
I understand this is not fun for in any which way, but I understand that people are in the world. People are still massively oppressed. Feminism has a massive place in the world in many Middle Eastern countries and many Asian countries, many African countries. There is a huge need for feminism and for women's rights, and as well as for anti-racism. There are so many needs. There's so much need for this kind of stuff in these countries because in these countries there's these horrendous acts where people are whipped, where people are imprisoned, where people are tortured, where people are thrown off buildings for their beliefs, for their sexuality, for all these kind of things, and we clearly need these ideologies in these places. However, in the West, we're at a point where we have all the laws that we really need. We already have equality for equal pay, for racial discrimination acts. We have all the laws that I think are currently necessary. Maybe the US could do with some more religion stuff, in my opinion, but that's a side note. And as such, I feel like we should be pressing our I don't know, our feelings, our emotion, our need for improvement of equity and equality into these other countries that have currently none. But instead, these liberal forces are pushing these strong emotions into our own society. And right now, it's not that bad. There are some minor problems, but they're very minor compared to these people who are, being whipped. These people who are literally being tortured.
When you're looking at it from a world, yeah,
when they're having their genitals like tortured at a young age, like all these different things, and they're horrendous, inhumane acts, and we turn an absolute blind eye, and instead we focus on things in our own country, like who can use what bathroom. Like, I'm sorry, I can see why it's an issue, but I don't think it needs to have as much media, focus as these other countries, which are currently in need of drastic action.
Well,
horrendous, drastic movements.
So Ken,
in my opinion, minor things. And I think, sorry, I'll get to my final point here. I think so. In my opinion, I think liberalism has it's got a good basis, and it should be focusing on more important issues in the world right now, where people are genuinely in distress and need liberalism. But in the West, we don't need that level anymore. We've already reached a legal standpoint, at least, where we're already fairly equitable compared to others, comparatively.
Well, and
So
this
we should focus our energies there instead.
it
is my
gets
own-
to the difference between a global perspective and a local perspective. And
Sure.
there's a challenge there because not everybody has a true global view of the world. You know, people
That's true.
see what's local very easily. It's easy to see what you deal with in your daily life every day, and to be very focused on what's right around you, because it also sometimes feels a lot easier to affect change in that smaller local view than it is to solve some of these massive world problems in other countries, especially when, you know, these other countries may have entire different bases of belief systems. So there's a whole bigger issue to it. I do agree that anybody who carries a very strong opinion about human rights and some of these specific kind of rights and laws needs to ensure they always recognize the bigger issues in the world so that they can not ignore them and only only talk about what's local, but to show that they are aware. But I can see why a lot of groups spend a lot of time and focus on what they can deal with right next to them, what they can affect.
I mean, I just feel that geography is such a minor issue in the modern world.
Well,
It is.
no.
I mean, we have planes, we have boats, we can get to the
But-
other side of the world in hours.
Except
it's
that for most of those countries where you have still massive human rights issues, if you just fly over there, that's illegal for one, and you would be
Yeah.
arrested, shot, and killed. And in a lot of them, if you were trying to change things in those countries by force of any kind, well, that's war. And so there is still a big
I'm not saying
diversion
it's
in humanity that, yes, we have the technology, but until we have a true world view as all the different countries, that's not going to change. And so there
I
is a
understand.
piece to that, right? There is. And I don't disagree with your overall opinion of, you know, where people's energies could be spent.
So can I say one final point on this whole issue? I know I've been kind of dominating this discussion, but
It is
I
always
want-
fun to hear a greater external view than what we carry here in the United States, which is why I appreciate you, Ken.
yeah, you guys are well just by the whole aspect of being Americans, you'll be very close to the picture compared to me who's on the outside. But that also means I don't see as much detail as you guys. You'll see what the local populace thinks, whereas I don't get to see that. So my final point is, who would I have voted for? And I think it's a good question because it's one that I've really tossed up. Now, firstly, I think the DNC is the real criminals in this whole situation. Not because of Hillary, but because of the fact they put out Bernie. Because if I had the choice, I would have voted Bernie. Not because I'm socialist in any which way. I consider myself very centrist, and he's a bit too left-wing for me personally. However, I think Bernie encompassed a lot of things that should, in my opinion, be the norm for first world countries, like free education and free healthcare. I think maybe I'm spoiled in the UK over here, but I just don't see why it's so difficult to do that. It's not as if the top 1% become bankrupt and the country goes into chaos because of this. I mean, we're fine. I mean, we have absolutely no problems with it. We just have it. I mean, yeah, the waiting queues are a bit crap for the NHS, but you know what? We deal with it, and at least we get seen, and we prioritize it by need. If you need to go on dialysis for a while and you can't get your transplant straight away, you know what? That's just what it has to be. And eventually you'll be put on the list. But the people who need heart transplants right now are number one priority. We do it by just sheer life saving aspects, and that's it. But if you're rich enough, you can still get private if you want, and that's a nice middle ground. And I really wish the US had that. I don't see why not. I mean, I don't want to name names here, but I'm sure the person who is definitely listening to this. I have a friend in the US who currently has gout, and he was telling me this story about how he can't go see the doctor about it because it's so expensive. And to me, it just blows my mind. You can't go to the doctor when you need help. You are in need of medical attention. You can't receive it. Then you effectively live in a third world country. At that point, you live in a third world country. That's the short of it. I mean, I think no matter what, you should be able to seek basic medical health, and that's all. But anyway, I would have voted Bernie if possible, is my point. If not, I would probably have voted for Jill Stein, because I think while the Green Party has many, again, too left-leaning with social policies for my personal taste, I think that saving the world is generally more important than anything else. I think being able to have a world exist in 75 years is way more important than any social policy, than any current economical policy, than any war. Jeez, if we went to half of like, I don't know, a population of a country as a side effect to saving the world, it's worth it because humanity will continue on. I don't. It's these hard decisions that I wouldn't want to make personally, but in my opinion, as far as it goes, saving the whole world is worth anything else. Social policies, economical policies, military policies, whatever. If we can save the world, that's all that matters right now. And I think people see it as, oh, well, it's not the next 4 years, so who cares, right? But it's, yeah, but it's your lifetime. I mean, we're all going to be affected at this point. I mean, if you just do some basic research into it, you'll see that we will all be somewhat affected, and so will our children, and even more so our grandchildren and so on. Will be affected by the what we are currently doing on the Earth, and we should elect thusly, based on the current situation. And yet, for some reason, people can only see 4 years ahead, and I think we're blind in that sense. We should all be voting Green Party in all of our countries, regardless of the crappy social policies or crappy economical or crappy tax laws. Screw our personal situations. Think of the collective. Think of humanity. Think of the world. Think of how we need to survive. And that's the last of what I have to say on it, I promise. So thank you for hearing me out, and thank you for letting me see my piece. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Ken. You're welcome. No, it's nothing in politics is easy. Because, again, people have the things that they find most important. And it is often the case where what I may find as my highest priorities in life do not match what people who share a lot of common interests with me find as their most important issues. And so you're always going to run into conflict, especially when you have limited resources of time, money, whatever it may be to enforce whatever it is you're trying to change. And so it's never going to be easy. I freely admit that a lot of my political views, I can watch my media feeds to know that they would absolutely go against both sides of major people of what they believe.
Yeah.
Because I believe I'm very independent, centrist, and stuff like that. And so it's difficult. Knowing that, my plea to everyone out there is to understand that while people may agree or disagree with, or not even agree or disagree, I would say better said, be for or against or more happy or disappointed with the results of what happened in our election. Everything followed the policies in place that we have for how we conduct business here in the United States. Thus, the election was valid. And the results were, according to our system, the way it is. Because of that, I know a lot of people are hurting, a lot of people are distrustful, and a lot of people are really suffering trying to understand how this is going to affect them in the future. And I recommend that people see it as that while the president makes a lot of the pushes kind of the agenda or the position of what the country is leaning towards, that he's able to say, this is what I am pressing for. The president can only, for most parts of things, approve and disapprove laws that are written and put forth by our Congress here in the United States. And so they can only approve or disapprove what our congressmen and women put forward as legislation. Now, they do have additional power and the ability to recommend Supreme Court justices and things like that. There's additional effect that comes out of it. But people should be aware that there's very little the president by themselves can do. And so for those people who are predicting doom and gloom and an apocalypse of sorts, I recommend saying, or I believe personally, that it's not going to be that extreme. Yes, we will likely see some things that you disagree with and that you would hopefully be able to convince your own congressman and such to fight against, so that the opportunity doesn't even present itself for a bad law to get passed or to even be created. That having someone as decisive or as one way or another as Donald Trump going in to be the president is not the end of this nation.
Not at all. No.
And we'll continue. These views have been seen in the past before. And I do know, again, because I know people with very specific issues who saw this and have made comments that anyone, and this is before the election was even determined, that would have voted one way or another must therefore by proxy hate them as an individual. And I would argue that a lot of those people need to understand there are more issues than the one that they themselves see as most relevant. And I talked to a lot of people who those same issues never even met their radar, didn't even meet what they were voting about. They were voting about something specifically, financially based, or specifically, world-based for how we deal with policy in other countries, or things like that, right?
You know what's true is that on both sides there will be Trump supporters who are racist. There will be Trump supporters who are sexist. There will also be Hillary supporters that are sexist, and there will also be Hillary supporters that are racist. The problem is that your view right now, anybody's view right now, can only be tainted by what is currently shown to them, and that's generally done by social media and by the general media, both of whom are very much tainted and paid towards certain viewpoints. So think carefully and think for yourself and come to your own conclusions with these things, rather than assuming that either which way is true. I can assure you that just because you vote one candidate or another does not mean that you belong in the general camp. Each person is an individual. Try not to think of them as a general collectivist, and actually assume that each person has considered their own vote carefully, considered the facts, and feel free to discuss with them. Ask them questions. Don't attack them. Say, why did you? Maybe you could learn something. Maybe they'll learn something from you. Don't assume that they're evil for their point of view. Assume that they know something you don't and learn from them, and vice versa.
All right, and that is our message of hope and unity for everyone out there.
Indeed.
It's a challenge. I understand. Like I said, I know people who are very adamantly opinion either direction. People who are celebrating, people who are, who are basically worried and fearful, and there's some truth there. And people have been empowered about things. Nice thing is laws are laws, and it hit everyone equally. And if someone breaks the law, hit them for that. Same thing I say about people who are showing racist views a little more openly because of the results, and people who are, while trying to say they're against the results, are protesting in a way that is not conducive to the public good, who are causing disruption in society and being violent and such. All that needs to end, because all of that is illegal and wrong and doesn't help anybody, regardless of what side of the issue you're on. Yes, if you're breaking the law, you're breaking the law, and you should be arrested either direction. I don't care. If you're going to have an opinion, voice it, but do it in a civil way. That's the case of everything I ever see. When people loot and riot their own areas, WTF? What are you showing to the world other than you are just a criminal looking for an excuse to be a criminal? And anyhow.
Yep.
So I want to completely change gears.
Yay.
and for the comfort of everyone, if you would like, you can welcome to comment anything.
We don't talk politics very often, but when we do, it ends up going in this rabbit hole, and we end up talking for a good 20 minutes about something, and then we talk about it for months, and then it's gone for a long time.
Every time we keep reminding ourselves we should still maintain our other show, Your Opinion is Wrong, because it's so good for these things. But if there's anything you'd like to say, Beck, it's fair if you don't. I fully understand. Yeah.
I am keeping my lips sealed on anything about.
Yeah, we can tarnish our views to the world because people don't have to like us, so that's okay. I need to two sides transition over from essentially dysfunctional deviations, get into.
I'm a geek. Are you a geek? Geek cred, level up.
And with this, I have two parts. Yeah, you like those? Well, you have some emails, but before we get to them, because that might actually be what ends out the show today, I have, by request of last week and me failing to do what I was supposed to, because today's the last day, and I'm going to give you a tease so that you guys can play along with. This is something that Copy let us know about last week in her email that I didn't get to. And so hopefully this will come through here as I try to see if it's loud enough.
Thank you for calling Nintendo's Power Line, which is back for 1 weekend only to celebrate the release of the Nintendo Entertainment System NES Classic Edition system, now available in stores at a suggested retail price of only $59.99. From your first Goomba stomp to defeating Ganon and getting the Triforce, the original Nintendo Entertainment System played host to many of gaming's most memorable moments. And now,
yes, this is an ad for Nintendo.
The version is here, preloaded with 30 of the all-time greatest NES games, including.
And I'm going to see if I can skip ahead of this.
Super Mario Bros. 3 and Metroid. Just plug it in and
Ah,
play.
it's not going to let me.
If your NES skills are a little rusty, don't worry. Some of the original gameplay counselors are here to share a few top tips and maybe even a story or two of their days on the original gameplay counselor hotline.
All right, so the reason I had to play that little bit, and hopefully that came through all right, is that Copy came and sent an email because there's a link from Engadget, and I put it on Twitter feed, so hopefully you guys can see it. That back in the day when we first got into our console gaming and such, there was no internet for people to go out there and find for help and guides and things like that. If you got stuck on a part of a game and didn't know what to do next, your best options were to find a friend and have them hopefully save you because they were better than you or have gotten through it, or you could call a number. And in this case, the number, if anybody wants to play along, is 425-885-7529. And it's one that they have brought up just for this weekend. It ends today, but I recommend you do it. If you have a local call, you can do it here for free, essentially.
That's cool.
But it is to call the old Nintendo hotline, as it used to be.
Oh, my God.
Because I remember this. It was actually, I still have magazines down in my basement of the Nintendo Fun Club before the Nintendo Power magazine came out, which the Fun Club was this tiny little magazine where the Nintendo Power was a big one. It was all Nintendo, all advertisements, but would have guides and maps and things. I remember getting the first like Legend of Zelda Overworld map fully filled in as like a actual thing to see. But it's neat. I went through it yesterday and actually played through all of them. There's 3 options where they have 3 different classic Nintendo helpline members tell stories of what it was like working in the 80s at Nintendo Hotline. Oh, gosh. And some of their stories of what people said and did with it, as well as actually giving a hint. There's 3 hints they give. One is a Zelda one is a... Oh, there's a Zelda...
Wait, so you call this hotline, and it would cost money to call, and they wouldn't even tell you how to do the missions, they'd only give you hints.
Well, no, it depended. Because when you actually call... So this one is just hints or kind of storyline things that... Because they're all pre-recorded. They're not actually live manning the phones, because they're just doing 3 famous ones. It's pre-recorded, but it gives you a sense of what it was like. I actually remember calling it once. Gosh. Because I want to say it was something like 5 cents a minute. Or something like that. It was that was how they made the money, right? It was depending on how long you were online with someone. And you'd get on and then talk to them and ask questions about, hey, I'm stuck in Zelda. I'm in this darn forest, and no matter which direction I go, I can't get out. I can only go back out the right side, and it's where I started. I'm so lost. How do I do this? And they could then either give you a hint of saying, like, well, did you go read this message, which will tell you how to get through? Or they could just say, oh, in this case, you need to go left twice, down, left, up, left, and you'll get out of the forest. And I don't know if that's actually the way you do it anymore because it's been a long time since I was in the Lost Woods. But but things like that. And so it's a cute little throwback to what it was like growing up on a console world back in the 80s.
I just remember handing the remote to my brother and be like, can you do this for me? I don't know what to do.
Yes, fix this for me, help me. And so, and yeah, and Copy says that essentially she was the one for that. Said back in the day, I was the go-to for beat this level for me. But I do recommend, it's cute. It doesn't take long, maybe a whole 15, 20 minutes. It is a free call, so don't worry about the old 5 cents a minute thing. But a way to go back and kind of see what it was like when you didn't have the internet, of how to help yourself get through really challenging games.
Terrible. Well, jeez.
I see. Everybody's so used to it now, right? You can look up at a YouTube video that not only just like walks you through the exact process, you can skip even playing some games like Mass Effect because you can watch the entire story elements of it all in a movie on YouTube and just watch it like a movie. And, you know, you don't even have to play some games now because other people are playing it for you. And so
All the big name gamers.
yeah, all the Twitch streamers, things like that, just all of that. So throwing it out there. Thank you, Copy, for throwing it in. And admittedly, listening to it all, I was this close to start looking for one of the NES Minis, one of the new ones that's out. Except I've heard they're sold out everywhere because they're $60. They come with 30 preloaded games on it, and of like big games. And I was tempted. I mean, I know I can do it all through emulation. I have them all. But there's something almost about having this tiny little Nintendo box sitting in my front of my TV that I can be like,
It's different, yeah.
Well, and it uses HDMI out, so it's all modernized like that, and it has the menu stuff. No more blowing your cartridges because it's all just embedded into the games with the ROMs.
That's a big memory.
Yeah, everybody remembers the first time they had to blow it.
I was always a Sega kid, so I wasn't Nintendo at all.
They had cartridges too. They had the cartridges.
No, I know. I'm not saying otherwise. I'm saying that just
The Phantasy Star Worlds.
Well, cartridges. It was just those cartridges, not the ones you guys did.
Yeah. So anyhow, I had to bring that up. Thank you, Copy. Sorry I didn't get to last week, but yeah, it was awesome. All right. Other bits, we have 2 emails that had come in for this week. And so I don't know if you're logged into that, Ken, but I will take the first one.
Not yet.
Yeah. So the first one comes in and says, Dear Crew X, as it happened, bunch of games with numbers came out, like Battlefield 1. BF1 takes place in an alternate reality where the air density of planet Earth is much tighter than ours, or higher. This causes projectiles to fall about 40 meters of flight and compresses the area of effect to even of a dreadnought shore bombardment to be barely larger than point blank. All of the extra oxygen, however, allows soldiers to sprint up hills even while wearing metal armor and carrying a heavy machine gun with several hundred rounds of ammo. Battlefield 1 is an authentic, quote, World War I experience where everyone and their mother has automatic weapons, planes are equipped with autocannons, autocannons and rockets, or anti-tank cannons and rockets, and the single players places you in the boots of a space marine mowing down hundreds of enemy soldiers single-handedly. So it's funny, the way you described that one, Serathis, makes me wonder if you were talking about Battlefield 1 or the new Call of Duty Infinite War. Kind of back and forth between. Continuing, it says, Shadow Warrior 2. We talked about this a little bit. The game is pretty good. It would have been amazing if the levels were handcrafted instead of a looter shooter. It would have been more like the original, but you have chainsaw katanas, so 40k. So they have that going for them, which is nice. Mafia 3. While I haven't played it, pretty much all the reviews agree that the first 2 hours of the game are amazing. Just when you run out of the refund window, you realize the rest of the game will be torture, interrogating 30 guys with exactly the same animations. Oh, that makes me sad. I love the Mafia series. All right?
Yeah.
See, Gears of War 4, Rawberry. Let's see, how does he say it? Rawberry, Menagerie, I assume, and a Propasterone simulator with chest-high walls. But apparently it is available for PC. Man. So I've actually heard good things about Gears of War. Let's see, Brutal Doom 64. The lesser-known version of Doom for the N64 had a remake my Sergeant Mark IV of Brutal Doom fame. I'm assuming that's by. Unlike classic Brutal Doom, 64 focus is not on the revamped combat with new monsters and weapons. Instead, it's overhauling the graphics, making it all creepier in the most claustrophobic metal halls that didn't melt the N64. Unlike large open space vanilla Doom, because even back the PC Master Race. Damn it, Serathis, you got to make that easier for me to read. So yeah, those coming up. Thank you, Serathis, for announcing a lot of the new games that have recently come out, and would love to hear from all of you if you've picked up any of these games, especially if there's ones that you think people should look out for or look away from. That would be great. So thank you for those. Indeed. I personally have actually been enjoying Battlefield 1, but I know a lot of people who have not. Ken, would you like to grab the next one?
Sure. Well, it's always a mixed bag, right? So, each to their own. All right. So this is from. Well, you'll see who at the end. Well, actually, you'll see the start because it states
at the beginning.
Greetings, good sirs, and in this case, madam. Agri says W here once more for Geek Cred update. Ambrosia, Copperfield, and I have started to level up our old characters, and Ambrosia decided to give Druid tanking a try and is doing well. I like Druid tanking because it's just basically like tanking like a warrior, except you have the ability to swap back and forth. Anyway, last weekend, stream was allowing people to play Warhammer Vermintide for free, so we all gave it a try and enjoyed it so much that we decided to purchase it.
Oh, geez.
It's a one-player, four-player co-op hack and slash similar to that of Left 4 Dead, with endless swarms of rats attacking you. I'd recommend it to anyone looking for a fun multiplayer game. I'm also glad to see that you're giving Steam the go-ahead to continue these kind of free weekends, because if it's free and then you buy it, that proves that their advertising campaign is working, and that's good for everybody else involved, because that means more free weekends.
Well, plus it's the modern version of demos, since we don't get true demos anymore.
Yeah, which I think is a good thing in my opinion. I actually prefer this. Finally, Ambrosia recently modeled her costume on her Facebook, and we were very happy with the overall quality. Link below. I will put it in the IRC right now for anybody interested. Oops, I almost pasted just a hando. Here you go. Here you go, IRC. Thank you again, Mr. Wayne, and to the other VTWs who helped me with our first cosplay. Mine is already on order, and I will share mine once it begins. This is from Agris SW level 110, Human Paladin Guild, Silver Wings on Moonguard, US. The Paladin of Ambrosia Heartnet.
So I like that for multiple reasons. One, because of course doing anything FMA, Full Metal Alchemist is fun, but also because I think that's the first time I've really seen pictures of Ambrosia. So appreciated for that.
Yeah, we're open now, actually.
We've heard about her forever now, but since he was like the level level 70 something paladin for Ambrosia, some way back when, as levels keep rising. But thank you for that very much. Now we can get into our geek cred, but we're getting close to the end of the show, so I want to throw back to Beck and say we talked a lot about your other things on that. I don't know if you're much of a gamer. But if you do, what kind of games do you like to play?
I actually am not much of a gamer. I only play one game, and that's only when I have the time to, and it is Minecraft.
Hey!
Good choice.
There is nothing
Very
wrong
nice.
with Minecraft.
I actually need to find a new server because it gets kind of boring playing by yourself.
It does, and it's funny because I know our groups kind of go through spurts.
Yeah, I wish I could recommend you play on our server, but currently it's down because nobody is currently playing it. We're not going through a current spurt. It seems like once a year, like me or Wayne or somebody gets in the mood and they're like, hey, do you guys want to play Minecraft? And then our server goes live, and then like 6 of us will all play it at once. And then for a month, we'll all play it a lot. And then we'll all suddenly stop playing it at the same time, and we'll stop paying for the server, and the server goes down. And so currently it's down, but you're welcome to join us any other time when it happens to be up.
Well, when it does get up, I would love to join.
Exactly, yeah, and we need to do more of that. All right, so the last bit of news and business that we need to take care of this week, and Kuro brought it up in the IRC to remind us. And it says, did y'alls already talk about the art contest?
Oh, yes.
So,
within the show, we used to, on the station in general, we used to have an art contest, and I used to host it along with the help of Volasol, and it started to die off through a time, and I decided, you know what, screw it. When Volasol stopped taking part, and some people stopped taking part, I said, screw it. It's no longer a VTW thing. It's now a Show X thing. It's now our show specifically thing. And since then it has been. Admittedly, it's been on a giant a resting period because nobody seemed particularly interested.
Yeah,
so I
hiatus. Yes.
Yes, a very long hiatus. But now that people started asking for it again, I actually went through the bother of creating it again. And we're now on our second iteration of the art contest. So if you want to come along and take part, you can most definitely do so. If you go on to vtwproductions.com and click on the forums at the top, go into the Show X board specifically, you can go into our contest, and in there we have a bunch of stuff going on. I better go there myself so I can actually read it out.
Well, and I'm actually going to show it out on the main monitor so people watching can see it along.
Thank you very much. So in there we have 2 main threads that you should pay attention to. One is last month's competition's voting thread. So if you want to go along, sign up to the forum if you haven't already. You can say, I think this is the best piece of art there. I think this is the art that should be that should win the art contest. You can go and vote for that. You have 5 votes out of I think 11 pieces. So you can say this is the current best one, and you can say this is the one I want to win. And that would be very much appreciated. But you can vote for up to 5 of your favorites, or you can vote for less, it's up to you. But please go along and vote and just show that tiny things like that help our community do more productive things and more fun things together, like this contest, and so that's very much appreciated. And it's good fun for everybody involved, including those who vote, because if the one that you voted for wins, you can be like, hey, that might have been because of my vote. And often it does go down to the last single vote, so every little helps. Other than the community vote thread, there's also the new art contest thread, the November 2016 version. So this one has the themes of Thanksgiving, snow, autumn, patterns, portrait, and the quote, war never changes. So it's a nice mix. There's a little bit of everything in there. So if you wanted to do something seasonal, there's lots there available. If you just want to take some pictures or do a painting or a story about your Thanksgiving, you could do that there as well. If you wanted to do some snowy, wintry things, you can do that too. If you want to do portraiture can count in painting as well as in photography and many other fields of art. So we intentionally choose the themes so that they're very open to everybody. So you should be able to come along and take part. It's lots of good fun, and if you win, you get to say that you've won an art contest, which is pretty cool, right?
Yeah,
so,
since we don't have any real prizes, it's more just a recognition and a fun place for us to play.
Exactly. You can say that you've won an art contest. I actually have this on my CV, by the way. I specifically say I won a couple of art contests. And
I hosted them, but don't worry about that.
Well, yeah, but it was voted by the community, not by me. So, if I'm the host and I put in and I win, then clearly it's not fair. But if it's community vote, it's fair, right? That's okay. So I do mention that in my CV, and it's a cool thing to do, right? And it makes you, if it encourages you to be more creative and take part in your own personal creative merits, whatever it may be, your drawing, your painting, your photography, your pixel art, whatever it may be, you can go take part, and it'll encourage you to do stuff, and you've got a whole month to do it. So this one ends on the 1st of December. It ends on the 4th of December, because that's our first Sunday within December. So that's how I'm ending it now.
Which, by the way, you will be on a solo show for, because I will be out doing photos.
Oh, okay, no problem. I don't think that's it. Actually, I don't know, we shouldn't be doing. But I think that's the week. Actually, that's awkward.
So we may be doing an early show or something like that on that day. We'll see.
We may be.
Or a pre-recorded show. We'll see.
I'm traveling to Greece the next morning very early at 6 a.m. So I'll probably be in a hotel that night somewhere in Glasgow or something. So.
Well, we will figure that out. But that'll be the end of the art show.
The art contest will go on regardless, so go take part in that, guys. It's available on vtproductions.com. Go to the forums at the top and sign up for an account. It's very easy to do. You just need to put in a username, email, password, yada 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 yada. And we need to verify it to make sure it's not a spam account. And
I have to make sure it doesn't look like it's from Russia or something, because I get a lot of those.
That I'm not really a robot?
Yes.
Exactly. We have so many of those. So once that's all sorted, we will let you into our forums, and then you can take part in the art contest. And once you do that, you have a chance of winning, and that's good fun. So yes, that's all of that. With that, I think we're over time anyway.
Oh, we are. But do we want to call the results from this last one?
Is it? It's not. Oh, it is today, isn't it? Oh, good point.
Well, and we do have a winner according to popular vote. In the forum, I was looking at it just now. We do have one who did win, and it's actually funny because I didn't vote because I participated. We look to the community to keep Ken and I honest, so that we're not voting for ourselves or anything like that. But it's actually one I probably would have voted for as the primary one. So, going through the examples, we had submissions from you, Ken, with your 3 submissions. Thank you. From Miss Copy with some of her line art that she drew of a hand turkey. To a selfie zombie photo I took from the zombie crawl, to photos from my brother Earthweaver of his Halloween costume, to our great friend Pusa, who had joined us earlier in the show, of her with a large, very taloned-looking bird, to additional artwork from Copy, as well as some photos from Kuro. And in this one, the vote from the populace, those who participated in voting, came up with a narrow margin because everybody at least received 1 vote. But the one who got the most was that of Kuro. And it was his submission called Apocalypse. And so for those who don't know, let's see, I will bring that up on the page. I actually quite liked it as well because he used filters on this to really give it a unique look. And so the one that is being shown right now of Kuro's Apocalypse photo, showing what could be very much the aftermath of some kind of major world event, as he looks down the street towards a church steeple in this photograph, got the most votes and has a very spooky look to it, which I think fits for this month. What are your thoughts, Ken?
I agree. It's a fantastic piece of photography. It shows a mix of general view of what you'd expect to see of a normal street, but given this sort of torturous feel of a post-apocalyptic world, and the imagery as well as the sort of clashing realism throughout gives this feeling of realistic apocalyptic world. And so I think he's done a fantastic job of doing that there. And I actually think this is not a digital photo. I think this is actually something. I think.
But he just said he just said good old film. He said not even filters. Good old fashioned film.
Thank you.
Look at you showing look at you showing your eye there, Ken, realizing that wasn't manipulated.
I promise didn't know, but just at a glance, I felt like that was film, and it does look like film.
Ken showing himself as like pro.
Actually shows a large amount of skill there, because doing that kind of thing with film is much more difficult than with digital these days. So considering that, that's definitely worthy of winning the art contest this month. So congratulations. You have done fantastic, Kuro, with your title Apocalypse under the Halloween genre of Too Spoopy. So thank you very much for your contribution, and congratulations on winning the November 2016 art contest. Thank you very much for taking part.
All right, so with that, I think it's time for us to finally get off air. Beck, did you have any last words? What did you think of maybe Kuro's art or anything like that?
That's beautiful. I love it.
Thank you very much. With that, again, everybody make sure you go check out all of Beck Stewart's work. Thank you very much for being on with us.
20,000 links.
Yes, absolutely. Insight into the way you think and what you use as references and such. So thank you very much for joining us. As well as if anybody has any follow-up questions, things like that, feel free to email them into the show at showx@vtwproductions.com. Anything else you'd like us to cover, follow? Other than that, Ken, could you lead us out beyond, and we will get out of here.
That I can. You have been listening to ShowX on VTWProductions.com. Check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/VTWShowX for the show's official account, twitter.com/DocDead for Mr. Wayne's own personal account. For myself, you can also find me on twitter.com/GoHex for your own disgusting political commentary. You can find me there. You can send us an emails to showx@VTWProductions.com. Check us out on Patreon. We are supported by the community, by the listeners. We are entirely non-profit, I suppose we can fairly say, considering we don't actually make use of it for personal benefit. All hardware and software that we make from the Patreon, we use for the show. And so we are, in that sense, non-profit. So check us out on patreon.com/showx. Even $1 a month helps us keep the show alive, so everything is appreciated. If you cannot contribute, you do not wish to, or you wish to support us in other ways as well, or instead of, you can. If you share our Twitterness or our Facebookiness, you can do that too. If you check us on facebook.com not forward slash, but go onto facebook.com and search for ShowX and you'll find us. And if you share our links, the links to our show, the links to our MP3s, the link to our forum, the art contest, all the stuff that we make an effort to try and do, if you can share that stuff, all the better. If you can share our guest stuff as well and say, hey, I really enjoyed listening to this podcast with all these fantastic guests, check us out here, we'd appreciate that as well. Because it's good for our guests, it's good for us, good for everybody. We're all happy people then. Anyway, you can support us, we appreciate. Finally, I want to give a thank you to Alpha Geek Radio, AGR. Those guys are fantastic. They support us in so many ways, technically, as well as through just the sheer fact that they appreciate our work and we appreciate theirs. We are a brotherly relationship where we help each other out and we love each other and stuff. So check them out, and I think that's everything. So thank you for having me personally on the show, Mr. Wayne, and thank you so much for joining us as our guest. We really do appreciate you. It's so kind that you can come on the show today.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, with that, we are out of here. We will catch you again next week. Thank you for listening. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye. See you in the next zombie. Good night,